Welcome to Thoughtfully Us, the space where three therapists of color sit down to talk about mental health, real life, and the human side of healing. We're colleagues, friends, and licensed therapists. And so in this podcast, we're pulling back the curtain on not just therapy, but on being people of color in this field and on the parts of life we don't always get to process in the therapy room. So whether you're in therapy, thinking about it, or just trying to make sense of your own healing journey, we're so glad you're here. A quick disclaimer is that this podcast is for informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for therapy, medical advice, or diagnosis. Listening to this podcast does not create a therapeutic relationship with any of the hosts. Tease up for Thoughtfully Us. Welcome! Welcome to part 2 of our New York Series.
Welcome to Thoughtfully Us.
Okay. Brace yourselves, people. We need some trigger warnings here.
We do.
Listeners. Because last episode, we were talking about what we liked about New York. We like brunch, architecture, culture, diversity, food, to name a few. And we loved a lot of things about New York and social work school. And we also had some challenges. And when we were thinking about our highs and lows, collectively we all had lows that related to being people of color in predominantly white spaces.
Yeah.
So, starting off this episode talking about race, sharing spaces, and microaggressions. So if that doesn't feel safe or helpful to consume right now, this is your warning that this episode is going to be talking a lot about that in a way that is hopefully like as constructive and safe as we can make it, but just wanted to warn everyone. And I'm so sorry if you can hear my dog.
It's funny. Well said. Good intro and good warning, especially with everything going on in the world. Know the capacity you have, and maybe this episode isn't what you can listen to right now, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Where do we begin?
I know. I was like, where do we even start? Because, well, I think at the end of part 1, I asked a good question of just like social work school in general, like what we learned, what surprised us. So I think with that, I was trying to think about, sure, like the experiences of internships, we can also kind of go into those settings and like where those were. But I was also thinking about the way social work school has a lot of emphasis on making sure you address things like racism and discrimination and all of these things, and to feel like there were people who maybe that was like the first time they ever heard those words, thought those thoughts, said things out loud, and very differing opinions and beliefs. And I think that was very shocking in ways. I don't know, because it's not to say everyone needs, like, I don't know, I think I just went into social work school being like, okay, everyone kind of like wants to be here because they want to do the work and help and really, you know, see the struggles or the system inequality, but that wasn't the case.
Not the case at all. And that shocked me too. Like a lot of times in classes when we'd be having certain discussions, like people's stances, I would be very confused why they were going into this profession. It's like, wait.
Yeah, it's like, wait a second.
You don't have to be a social worker. So if you feel this way, why would you be here? And I think we had a huge drop off of a lot of people who left our program.
Yeah. We did.
Which, like, appreciate that, right? Like, this is not the space for everyone.
Yeah.
But there were also a lot of people who stayed, and discussions and conversations in classes that were pretty challenging to have, especially as people of color.
Yeah. I'm just going to say, for us, we had orientation before classes even began, and that was like a week, I think, 1 week. And that's where, like, we're introduced to the program, but that week was just us talking about systems of oppression, race, privilege, and all the things. And that was really like to go from being really excited and nervous about starting school and start and move into a new city and meeting all these people to being like thrown into these conversations with people we didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
which maybe was intentional, but that was an experience and it just all happened so fast for hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of set the tone for the rest of the 2 years.
Oof. Yeah. I think that was like a huge shock of like, okay, what is the purpose here? Like what is the goal here? And
Mm-hmm.
for me, it felt like a goal was framed as education or educating or awareness, but it was only like educating or awareness for certain populations,
Right.
specifically like white populations. And so it came at the cost of a lot of people of color, like sitting there almost like having to share their experience, like about these really personal and deep things, just to educate white people on what it's like to be a person of color. And I will say, I think this happened greatly and like at a much higher rate for black students. Um, like a lot of times I'd be sitting in classes being why, why are black students having to sit here and listen to this? Or like actually paying money for these classes to like be hear people like learn about.
Yeah.
But yes. But I think with that, like, I do recall myself kind of like closing off in ways. Like, I just kind of stopped, probably because of that, because I was just like, no one gets, well, not no one, but some of these people don't get it, or,
Mm.
I don't want to share stories. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like it does get tiring for people of color in that space if you're doing it all the time. And like,
Mhm.
I think we've all talked in a previous episode maybe of like growing up in predominantly white spaces, right? Neighborhoods, schools. So I think, you do get to a point where you're kind of just tired, I guess. And I think I noticed that kind of like checking out in the school setting, anyways.
Hmm.
But yeah, it was interesting.
Well, and I think that's the difference. Like, I think you bring up a great point, Maya. I feel like I wasn't prepared because I was used to like being in white spaces a lot of the time. I was like, oh, this won't be any different. I think the
Hmm.
difference here, which is something I think we're seeing a lot of as people are gaining awareness, is like you cannot open up conversations about these topics without safety measures in place for the people it impacts the most. And like there was so much like opening of these conversations and then people debating like people's experiences in front of the people who have those experiences. Like that just
Hmm.
wasn't okay at all. And there was no safety measures for those students. There was no check-ins like and so I think that was a really dangerous kind
Yeah.
of way of teaching and it again felt like it was mainly teaching one population and not really like benefit like I don't know what do you
Mm.
I didn't feel like a lot of the activities we were doing especially in the beginning were teaching me all that much.
We didn't learn anything new.
Yeah.
So for us, we like, I think I talked about this in one episode. There were times when I would just sit in class, like, why am I shouldn't have come today because I already know all this stuff. I've lived it, I've learned it. Because we don't, for most people of color, you don't have a choice to not learn and understand things like racism, discrimination, privilege, and oppression. And even though a lot of us do have privileges in our lives, and I'm very open about the privileges I have, as are you two as well, we just live life differently. And the way we view the world and are seen in the world's different. So to go to a place where classmates, one classmate even said they've never been in a setting where there's other people besides white individuals with them and around them. And I was like, oh, okay. And that was like pretty common because people come from all over for grad school and things like that. But then if you're going to admit that don't also be defensive and then say like, well, I don't think I mean it like that, or I don't see an issue with like this kind of thing. It's like, but people are telling you something that they've gone through or something they've witnessed for generations, and you're gonna be devil's advocate, which there was people in our classes who would be like, let me play devil's advocate. It's like, no, you don't need to play devil's advocate right now.
Those
So I
words
think
are
that
like
was a lot.
I know. I was gonna say like devil's advocate.
we don't need devil's advocate all the time. Like there's just I was like, we actually don't need that. Like it's okay to not have that in the room or the conversation, but
You can play like devil's advocate about like like a TV show character. Like this is like human rights.
lives.
That I'm not sure if we should be playing devil's advocate about.
Exactly.
We got that a lot. And I also would say like our podcast, of course, we started it because we're three therapists of color and we are navigating a lot of different spaces. I also do recall a lot like of sexism though too in school. So because I was thinking about like the time frame of when we were in school and like I think it was fresh with like the Women's March and all of that stuff. So we were just navigating like various things in that regard too of like gender equality and sexism and like all of these things kind of at once. Plus on top of our school, and I know many other schools too, I think at the time we're also like incorporating these like, moments and courses and, literature on like race and oppression and systems, which makes sense. But it was, I think, a lot for us also to just process all of these things at one time.
Yeah.
Too. And that also led to feeling a little frustrated.
And I think that context, Maya, is so important because I think that was one of the most frustrating things was like this idea of almost like oppression Olympics of like some people in class being like, or in spaces just being like, well, I'm a minority as like a woman, so like I get what it's like to be a person of color. Like I understand, I get it. And
Yeah,
we're
it's
like,
almost like who has it worse.
yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
We're like, well, not quite. And I feel like a lot of like the discussions ended up being like, well, I have it the worst. And it was like not super constructive and very emotionally draining. And I will say that like in the program we went to, there were a lot of staff of color who were trying to implement things to be supportive of students of color, and like trying to make efforts towards supporting students of color just in general in the space because it was a lot. But yeah, like you're like living, it's like there's so many levels to it. It's like one, the realization like, oh, these people have no idea that this is like actually people's experiences. So like first you're like, wow, ignorance is bliss. Like that's really nice. That you never And then like people are challenging it and you're like, wait, what? Like and then you have to watch that and listen to that happen for weeks, for months. Like
years. No, I'm just kidding, but yeah.
like that really takes a toll. If you didn't feel invalidated or like hurt or impacted by these things before, like having this all happen right in front of you, it like really takes a toll, and is why we had so many happy hours after, because we would have to debrief and be like, what was that? Like, what is going on? What was that? And then on top of that, like, because again, it was a predominantly white school, some of the activities that we had to do to learn about, to try and learn about, like, communities of color were actually, like, very invasive and inappropriate. And, like, we had assignments that we had to do for using, like, our field placements, like our internships. So things we had to do, like, at our internship with, like, real life humans that just did not feel appropriate and felt like we were misusing.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if we wanted also to like share, we don't have to share obviously like the ins and outs of what our internship was, but I was just trying to think of general maybe like what system or area, and then maybe what like, I mean, I guess it depends on an internship, but like maybe what the predominant like clientele was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for both years. So we had 2.
Yeah. Okay, I can start. I did my first year, I was at a charter high school, um, with like all, I don't think there was someone who wasn't a student who wasn't a student of color. Um, and then my second year, I worked at a hospital, but like this specific clinic that saw people who were uninsured, and that was mainly people of color as well. Both were teens and adolescents.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice.
Morgan?
My first year was in the South Bronx. Woohoo. And which I loved that area, even though it gets a bad rap. Um, Working at a nonprofit, working with families. And then the second year I was at a public school. It was a middle and high school in Washington Heights. So clientele for both, very diverse. Nice mix. However, the students were very diverse, and most of them were students of color, but actually a lot of the staff were white individuals, which was interesting. Yeah.
Same with my school.
Yeah, that is interesting. My first year was in the West Bronx at a community center, predominantly Hispanic, Latino population, children from immigrant families, middle high schoolers. My second year was a hospital too. Same hospital as Nellie, but like I was in the inpatient, well, I guess an outpatient liver kidney transplant. So it was actually a mix of people, which I liked. So a lot of different backgrounds, a lot of different demographics. So I really can't say there was like one more than the other. It was kind of like even, but various like socioeconomic statuses, which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, and different religion. I feel like it was like everyone.
Yeah.
Which was cool,
Yeah.
too.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. So we had like pretty diverse placements like between the three of us, being in like various different places. And yet some of the assignments we had to do, like, I don't know, I feel like we had the same assignments to like do stuff in our field placement, but I'm like, we had such different settings. So like that could be appropriate in one but may not be in another.
Mm-hmm.
But one assignment that we had, do you guys remember when the walk?
Yeah. I was like, the first one we ever did
That was the first, yeah.
before our internships even began.
Yeah.
My gosh, the walk.
I'm gonna explain. Nellie will explain it to
No,
you.
no. I don't want to.
Well, I don't know what it was called, but yeah, so we were assigned
It's bad.
a borough to go visit or like a neighborhood to go visit, explore.
Neighborhood.
I think there were questions associated
Yes.
with it too.
We had to go like walk
Yeah.
around
Immerse
neighborhood.
ourselves.
and immerse ourselves in this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And they picked specific neighborhoods.
Yeah.
That are like not gonna be like the like Times Square, like stuff that's more touristy New York. However, this walk was incredibly invasive, and some of the questions that followed about like grocery stores and was like definitely some prejudice and stereotypes. And then, so the assignment itself inherently could use some work, but then we also had the backlash of a lot of students being like, I don't feel safe going here.
Yeah, I won't go here.
Mm-hmm. And without any, like, really, with just like, well, I just don't feel comfortable going there. And then when that was attempted to be explored, oftentimes by other students, of like, well, like, do you see how maybe there's some like bias here? That was often not received.
Right. Because none of they wouldn't put us in unsafe
No.
locations as a school.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
in Queens, but I don't remember the specifics of where, but I remember it was in Queens.
I don't even remember where I had to go.
Mine was Tribeca.
But I was with Kimmy for mine, so shout out to Kimmy. We
Nice.
were figured that out together. But this is an example of just like the Oh, I was in Brooklyn, I'm pretty sure, because I think there were people from my group. I had a really diverse group, but I think there were people from my group who were like familiar with the area. And again, an example of like who is this educating?
Right.
Is this and like people of color are paying for this, paying to like be enrolled in this to educate other people about like it just
Mm-hmm.
A lot.
Doesn't make sense.
and led to students of color in the program having to do a lot of educating of other people.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're paying to teach.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the stuff was primarily in class.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe internships. I know, again, some people didn't love their internship, didn't have the best experience. I was fortunate that I really had such good supervisors and just other fellow interns and
Mhm.
great staff I still keep in touch with till this day. So I think that was different, and I was thankful for that because I couldn't imagine like the not liking any of my school experience. But I think the classes were frustrating in that way, again, of just what was going on at the time, what they were trying to implement, and then again those discussions where it just kind of felt like, again, more of the education piece that we were the ones educating, and that you can imagine gets exhausting.
And it was all part of a new curriculum they were trying to implement. So we were probably the second or third class.
I thought we were the
I
first.
think we were first.
Yeah.
Oh.
I think it was also that way, like
Yeah.
tons of feedback I think they asked us throughout, and like
Yeah.
at the end, and like
I think maybe that's why I'm confused because the year above us helped like
Yes.
format it, but we
And
were the
years.
first pilot
Mm-hmm.
cohort to go through it. So it was just there was a lot of things they just needed to work out and better train like professors and
Mm-hmm.
like the leaders, because we had like leaders for different activities, and just it was a new thing. So we get the intention behind it. So
Yeah.
it's good conversations, necessary conversations. It's just implementation wasn't ideal. And when we would explain that to like administration, they would say, or they wouldn't take accountability. They're like, oh, well, sorry. I'm like, okay.
I think there's a lack of discussion about like social work being a quote unquote helping profession, and yet being something that has actually been very disruptive to families, and especially families of color, and like CPS systems, and just like really doing a lot more of breaking up of families rather than supporting families in you know, finding solutions and working together to keep families together when that makes the most sense, and is the like healthiest thing to do. So I think like it was coming from that place of like we need to have these conversations, because there was a lot of like white saviorism in social work, of like just like coming in and like being the savior. So the intent was like really incredible with this program, and we were the first year of it, and I just like I'm really curious now. I've no clue like what I don't know. We should like ask someone. I don't
Yeah,
know,
we should.
yeah, that'd be cool,
At our
just to see
program.
what that looks like.
Yeah.
should.
Because even like the program I'm in, although I'm not doing a master's in counseling, they have the same type of classes that they do when they first start the program.
Like we had people feeling like comfortable and safe, like acknowledging family members being in the KKK. So it was quite an experience. And I think I think it's a microcosm, or like a example of just how much like mental load people of color are holding a lot of the time. And in these conversations, like as we move towards having more discussions about racial injustices, discrimination, prejudice, like things like that, I think those are really great movements to make. And I think doing so without thinking about how these discussions are impacting the people who are like directly impacted by it is that's nerve-wracking. Like that's not healthy. And so I think that because it reminds me of like when something happens and like on the news there's like these horrible images and like again that's like
Video.
really detrimental to people like the people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like vicarious trauma, it's secondary trauma. So as a trauma therapist, I'm just like, guys, like we really need to figure out and like hold space for the fact that like these educating some people, but at the cost of what? Like
Mm-hmm.
what and is there, I mean, I say is there a better way, but I know there
I
is.
don't know. Yeah, I mean, there is. One activity we had, which I won't dive into, but we had to split up by like the white students and then the students of color. And it was hard for the individuals who are mixed race because they're like, where do I go? And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't know. Like, what?
You're like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
Where do you go?
so crazy. But with that, what are some things you like valuable lessons or insights you learned from working with your clientele in your internships, field placements?
Well, I think New York City, I was trying to think about that. Or any city. Every city has their own set of like rules and program. I mean, similar, but various specific programs and funding and all of that. I feel like New York has a lot because there's a lot, there. So I think it was interesting in that way of like part of social work can be connecting your clients or patients to resources. So I do remember, I just feel like there was something for everyone. It was just, you had to search for it. Like, it wasn't, I think some were harder to find than others, but there was always something too. And then moving to other cities where there's similar but maybe less programs, I think was interesting and very eye opening of like, wow, like, I think their city, they recognize the problems. And of course, they have ins and outs and like everything could improve in a lot of ways. But I think that was interesting and a good takeaway of like kind of seeing the city recognizing the system problems and the problems various populations have.
Nice. What about you, Nellie?
I think the biggest thing I learned from my clients was probably, or like from the whole experience, is like people really want to work with people who have similar lived experiences to them and they have a right to. And like I think one of the biggest I still like struggle with this now in the work that I do, like when I've had to transfer or like talk to someone and I'm not accepting new clients and I'm trying to find a referral for them, like there's just not enough of us out there. And there's a reason why. Like there's so much access issues to like becoming a therapist. It's expensive, it's a lot of work. And then like these are the experiences that people are having. And so like I don't know, I'm like we need more therapists of color. We need more male therapists.
Yeah.
Like we
Agreed.
desperately need more male therapists of color. I mean, and again, I think there's a reason that, there is a lack there, but yeah, I think people want and deserve to live or to work with people who have similar lived experiences.
Hmm.
I think that is
Yeah.
completely fair and valid, and it's really important, and it can change someone's experience like a lot.
Oh, well said. I like that. So true. And I think my answer would be just from the diversity I got to see and witness, and there's still people I worked with who I still think about. Like, I'm like, oh, I wonder how they're doing. But I think for me, because of where I was located for my placements, a lot of the individuals served were like at the poverty line or just above it. And we hear so much from society about work hard, make sure to save, do whatever you can to like pull yourself up by the bootstraps, things like that. But these people are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
They knew where every single penny of their money was going, and they just still didn't have enough. And so it was really eye-opening for me to understand just like how difficult it is, because you hear about it, you read about it, but to see how difficult it is to pull yourself out of like poverty or being one unexpected bill away from like losing your house or being the lights being turned off, things like that, I think gave me such a sense of like awareness, gratitude, and I think some of the social activism that I talk about a lot. So like people are trying,
Mm-hmm.
just there's so much against them.
Yeah.
That was the biggest lesson. Their perseverance, persistence, and then just the systems that keep failing.
I know we can't obviously say everything because, but I think everything we went through helped us in ways to shape our identity, shape our understanding, and as people of color, but also as social workers and therapists in particular.
Yep. Oof. So, listeners, if you have been in a space where if you are a person of color and you've been in a space where you felt this, it's heavy, it's hard, and it definitely does take a toll on you. If you're not a person of color and this is the first you're hearing of it, we encourage you to think about that. And if you're not a person of color and you have seen this happen, it's something.
Yeah.
It is something. But thankfully, leaning on our friendships have been really helpful, monumental. There was a lot of dark humor involved, but there were definitely some tears and some hard.
A mix of both.
Yes. But, I mean, part of this is what developed me and Maya's friendship, so.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
That
And
is true.
community, even now,
Mhm.
find your community. Try to learn from or educate yourselves. No, it's not anyone else's job to teach you things. I mean, you can ask like, "Hey, I want to learn more. Do you have any like recommendations of things I should watch or read?" Like that's always a nice thing, but don't expect people of color to teach you because it's not our job. No, we don't get paid to do that. So, yeah.
We
Thanks
don't
for
get paid to do it, and it's like not some like casual topic. It's like
Right.
often emotional and hard and
Mm-hmm.
complex. And that's if you listen and understand. Most of the time, that's not even what's happening. So if you added up all that work together, it would be a full-time job, and it's not a job we signed up for.
Exactly. And so, I encourage everyone, even us three, to do something nice for yourself after listening to this episode and just kind of shake the conversation off. Keep it in your mind, but do something for yourselves. And our part 3 of this New York segment will include more about like social work, kind of what we learned through school, what it looked like, because I think people don't really know how intense like the program is over a 2-year capacity, and then maybe things that we still keep with us that we learned in school, or things that we had to learn once we got out of school. So part 3 will be all about more about the profession. And
Love that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
See you all in the next episode. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Tease up.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's conversation. We hope you felt seen, supported, and maybe even laughed a little along the way. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a new one. And we'd love it if you left us a rating or review. It really helps more people find us. You can also connect with us on Instagram at thoughtfully_us and let us know what you want to hear about next. And remember, while we're therapists, this podcast is not a substitute for therapy. If you're struggling, please reach out for support from a mental health professional in your area. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.